Okay, welcome everyone. It's Wednesday, April 20th. This is our third class of Discovering Buddhism, Transforming Problems with Venerable Amy Miller. And with that, I'll hand things off to Venerable Amy. Unless you'd like me to go right into the opening prayer on slides.
Sure, we can start with the opening prayer. That sounds great. So when we do this prayer, let's just do the refuge and bodhicitta. Is that okay? There
Absolutely.
we go. So this is really important time to set our motivation. And this is really about our directing our awareness in a really positive way, because we're so easily distracted anymore. That means our energy, as you know, gets pulled away in different directions. So really, you taking a moment, if you just like to close your eyes for a minute. And just allow some deeper respiration. Really deep inhalation, and as you let go any tension in your body, a deep exhalation. Just think about what you would like to get out of this evening. And reflecting on your purpose for being here right now. So as we know, there are a lot of other things we could be doing this evening. And it's helpful when you think about getting some techniques to transform problems in your everyday life. Can we roll those techniques into our practice, energizing our hearts, our minds in a more positive way that hopefully can move us along a path to full awakening, to becoming Buddhas, fully awakened beings. Because then we're happy all the time, no problems, but we're able to help all other beings with their problems unlimitedly. If that's something that resonates with you, feel free to include that right now in your motivation. Just feeling in your heart, directing your mind in a purposeful, meaningful direction. And directing the mind in a most positive way. It's for that reason that we're getting together right now to talk about transforming problems and lojong, mind training. And so what we normally do is refuge and bodhicitta before the teaching, this prayer that Gina has so kindly put up. Let's just really think about the words we say. We'll recite it twice in English, and then we can chant it in the Tibetan phonetics. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. O Sangye Chodanzo Gicho Namla Jancho Bardu Dagni Gyab Suchi Dagi Chiningi Peso Namgi Drola Pencher Sangye Druparsho. Thank you very much. So I'm going to lead another meditation that goes along with this module of the traditional meditations that are listed. This one is specifically called Transforming Problems into Happiness. So we did a brief Tonglen meditation last week, giving and taking. And that was actually in relation to yourself, with just visualizing yourself in front of you. So I mentioned this week trying to practice that this week, but I tend to use it throughout my life, especially during challenging times where I feel like I'm not doing enough self-care. It's a great meditation to just place yourself in front. We are going to return to that meditation in the next few weeks to do a little bit more traditionally how Lama Zopa Rinpoche has in the written pages in the meditation that goes along with this class, just to give you some familiarity with that. So I generally like to do some of the meditations as they are on the page, so you can find some consistency in that, and then sometimes something different. So this is the third meditation technically for this, or I'm sorry, meditation 2 is transforming problems into happiness. So first there's a longer Tonglen, giving and taking, transforming problems into happiness. And the third meditation we are also going to do in relation to the 8 verses of mind training that we're focusing on more specifically in this class. And what we'll do is a visualization with the Buddha of compassion, of how you can meditate on those verses with that Buddha and some mantra recitation like that. It's really beautiful practice. So this way it gives you, and what happens is on your Dharma career, to make it more practical for you, there's a lot of different meditations we do. All of these modules have specific meditations with them. So it may sound daunting at first, but you try a module, goes on for a few weeks, you try some of the meditations. Some people print them out, some people look at them on a device. It's all fine. But what happens is if you're willing to do them a few times and actually do a meditation, let's say for 2 weeks, and what I mean by 2 weeks is maybe you get to it 3 or 4 days in that 2-week period. So 6 to 8 times you're doing the meditation, okay? And maybe you just have 20 minutes. Some of them take a little longer than 20 minutes, but if you have 20 or 30 minutes to try to do them 6 or 8 times in a 2-week period, you start to get really familiar with the meditation and you don't need the page anymore. You have some sense of it. So you build your Dharma toolbox. And what happens when problems pop up in life, you need different meditations for them, but you start to build this toolbox to know which tool you need in a certain thing. So this one has 3 main meditations with it that tend to be a little bit long. So feel free to break them down then. So maybe you spend another 2 weeks doing another part of that meditation well. And that's kind of how my Dharma career with meditation got started, is it does take effort to do these practices again and again and again, but they make you happier. So what happens, we do a lot of other activities that aren't necessarily contributing to our happiness, right? So it's so hard right now. I find it's harder and harder to get people onto their cushion. There's more distractions. There's, more interesting people telling me about videos now that you can stream from France, and they're really interesting. And the ones from Italy and the ones from Japan, and everything's available to us. Right, so the mind a little bit more distracted, but are these things contributing to your overall deep well-being? Something you have to ask yourself. So we certainly need breaks at times. There's nothing wrong with some of these distractions. It's just a matter of we become habituated with them, and that's what we're doing a lot of in our break times. So think of something to think about, okay? Let's just relax, close your eyes. And this meditation, just to explain, meditation 2 again, transforming problems into happiness, does involve a short version of the 4 immeasurables, this beautiful prayer. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings had happiness and the causes of happiness, right? Which is immeasurable love. So it does incorporate these 4 verses like that. And they're kind of talking about, relief from suffering. But I'm going to skip down. So you can either incorporate that into this meditation. And this one's much more about it goes through the verses of happiness, like that, immeasurable love. But I want to come down a little bit more in this meditation right now. So first begin by placing your mind on the breath, a normal, natural breath. Just allowing the mind to settle for a moment. I'd like you to bring to mind now, this is an analytical meditation. You're analyzing something. Bringing to mind the biggest problem in your life right now. It could be a disharmonious relationship, problem at work, difficult family situation, maybe a health problem, financial concerns. Maybe it's just that you feel life is working against you. Nothing ever seems to go smoothly. Please be specific. So if your mind has trouble choosing, allow a number of real problems for you to present themselves to you. And I'd like you, as you do this, is allow your mind, as best as you can, to feel the mind that's thinking of this thing as a problem. See if you can get a sense of your mind noting, how does it feel? This is a problem. The mind that says that this is a problem. So you can get a sense of that mind and how it feels. Notice how that mind wants to push away the problem and get it out of your life. Notice the discomfort that you feel with this kind of mind. So, what do we do in this space? Let's think about renunciation right now. Let's apply renunciation. Just thinking, as long as I am in samsara, samsara, again, a Sanskrit term for the cycle of suffering. Samsara means to cycle or to turn. All of it is suffering that you're turning through as long as you experience samsara. So just think, as long as I'm in this situation, under the influence of karma and delusion, what do I expect? Did I think my life wouldn't have any problems? To just reflect like this, living in samsara means there will be problems and suffering. And why do I continue to endure samsara? Why am I not making more effort to get out of samsara? Because each and every one of you can. And why do I keep reaching for happiness in samsara? It doesn't exist. You're kidding yourself. So, this problem, just think for a moment, this problem that I'm bringing to mind is a perfect reminder that there's no purpose to stay in samsara. So, as deeply as you can, reflect on those different phrases I was mentioning. And you might want to take one of the phrases over and over. Just think, what did I expect? This is samsara's nature. It's broken. What did I expect? This is how life is in samsara. Problems will arise. Maybe you feel like you're the only one experiencing this problem. So let's deal with the problem thinking that countless other beings are experiencing the same problem that you are right now. You're not alone. You're not the only one going through this. They're feeling the same frustration, perhaps fear or pain, depression or anxiety, just like you are right now. Reflect deeply on others who are suffering like this. And please reflect, not only that, but you've come in contact with the spiritual path. You've come in contact with the Dharma. So you know why you suffer for the most part, and you have a remedy to free yourself from problems forever. Imagine that. Most people don't even know why they're suffering. So all you have to do is make effort in the right direction. So think about this incredible good fortune you have right now, having come in contact with a spiritual path like the Dharma, something that authentic. And according to Buddhism, everything comes from the mind. Everything comes from the mind. There's nobody doing it to us. So we might reflect that nobody created this problem for me. We'd like to blame somebody external, but that's another source of our suffering. Again, being a Buddhist means you're an inner being. You're checking your mind. Okay? So nobody created this problem for me. Think about that. I created the problem. I planted the seed, that karmic propensity in my mind stream, and it's simply ripening right now as a problem. And because it's ripening and suffering for me right now, whether small or great, just think you're exhausting that negative activity that you've done in the past. Exhausting, purifying it. So I have an ability to look at the problem this way, but also not to blame somebody external and to find a way to take responsibility for my mind. Can you creatively think about a better way to do it next time? A better way to think about the problem? And what about thinking, may I bear this suffering that I'm experiencing from this problem on behalf of all other living beings? So, in a sense, using the Tong Lin, the taking and giving, I take on this problem and the suffering to reduce my self-cherishing on behalf of all living beings. So, by my experiencing this very discomfort, this problem, just think in your mind, may all others be free of this specific suffering. Huge space of mind for you. Again, by experiencing this problem or discomfort, may all others be free of this specific suffering forever. And may any benefit from doing this meditation help us be able to counter our problems as they arise in most beneficial ways and be able to generate the effort we need to get out of samsara for the benefit of all. So please relax and slowly, when you're ready, please open your eyes. So that particular meditation, that's just one part of the transforming problems into happiness meditation. Next week, we're going to be applying emptiness, the nature of reality in the meditation. How would I then deal with the problem with looking at emptiness, which is the best way, the best meditation to do for any problems at all. It's fantastic. So we're going to slowly work our way through these meditations and also to show you how to break them down. Like you're not expected to do the whole meditation in one sit. It takes too long. It's better to break them into small increments. Do them slowly and really take time. We're doing them briefly, but I would say if you have, 20 minutes per meditation at least. If you have a little bit longer, you get, really think about it and keep the mind focused, it really starts to make a difference for you. So you try your best. Try your best. So I want to talk a little bit about equanimity, which I have spoken a little bit about. That's very related. And so the wish fulfilling golden sun, one of the readings, we're given certain pages there. It does have an equilibrium meditation and then goes into extensive readings about bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, again, is the enlightened attitude that's so connected to this course, that incredibly open heart to all beings, thinking of them first, the wish to get enlightened, to benefit all living beings. So it's not just the wish to get enlightened, it's to get enlightened to benefit all living beings. It's also not the wish to benefit all living beings alone. So you need the connection. It's to get enlightened. Why? Because then you're unlimited in helping all living beings. Okay? But enlightenment's not the goal. The goal is to benefit all living beings. But how can I really help them? By becoming a Buddha, fully awakened being. Then I'm unlimited, perfect, omniscient consciousness can help them incredibly. Okay? So the basis of the two methods I'd mentioned before to develop bodhicitta is equanimity. Okay? It's the thought that all beings want happiness and don't want suffering. Okay? And they're worthy of our consideration, our effort, our respect. That's equanimity, basically. And then the faults of self-cherishing, the opposite. I've mentioned some of these before. It prevents you from getting enlightened, okay? It prevents you from developing bodhicitta, prevents you from having good renunciation, okay? It basically stops you. This self-cherishing is the problem. It stops you from gaining every temporary happiness, okay? And it's behind many of your deluded minds, many of your deluded thoughts and things. What's in it for me? What am I going to get out of this? I don't want to help them. I want to take care of myself. Okay. That's self-cherishing. Those are the faults of self-cherishing. It basically impedes so much of your path to enlightenment. Okay. And by nature, delusions disturb the mind. That's their nature. Okay. And they cause propensities for more suffering in the future. That's the nature of delusion. That's kind of what delusion's about. When you say, it's a mental imbalance. Okay, it's whatever disturbs the mind. That's what we want to give up. That's true renunciation. Giving up what disturbs the mind, like that. Okay, so let me go back to our verses. We're going to look at, we started with verse 1. So just as a review, and I also mentioned, let's see, to do the Tonglen, focused on yourself, okay? And to think about the verse that we talked about. And here's the verse that we were looking at last week. If you remember. Determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings, who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I hold them most dear at all times. We're going to keep reciting these because they keep going in, and it's nice to play around and stay with a verse for the week. So we're going to look at 2 and 3 at least, and we may get to 4 as well. Verse 2. Okay, of the 8 verses, Geshe Langri Tangpa, the 8 verses of mind training, the very famous lojong text. Verse 2 counters pride and with humility. So this is a verse countering pride with humility. So if pride's one of your things, this is the verse you want to spend a lot of time with. When in the company of others, I shall always consider myself the lowest of all, and from the depth of my heart, hold others dear and supreme. Okay, so be very careful. Let me read this again. When in the company of others, I shall always consider myself the lowest of all, and from the depth of my heart, hold others dear and supreme. Okay, so this is not being a masochist and being a doormat for people. People get confused. People think they should be putting themselves down constantly. again, Buddhism has to be based on a level of self-compassion. Okay. It's nearly impossible to have compassion for others if you don't have it for yourself. And I actually think renunciation is the beginning of that process. Okay. So meaning, like, we think of renunciation, I'm giving away all my possessions, all my money. It has nothing to do with that. Okay? Again, I'm giving up whatever disturbs my mind. So again, you just looked at a problem that you had in the meditation. And some problems, and I know a number of you, and but I just want to go back to the gallery here. Yeah, because I've got some dear friends here, just looking at the different people in different parts of the country. It's lovely to see all of you. And so knowing you just brought up a problem that you're having in the meditation. And some of these problems, I'm just wondering how many of them are recurrent problems for you? Like you continue to have this problem, right? Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. So aren't you tired of having that problem? Right. Lisa's like, mm-hmm. So I ended up once in a relationship, and I was actually in relationship with one of you. So you know me quite well. I was in an intimate relationship with somebody years ago before I was a nun. And all the relationships I had kind of culminated in this relationship of making the same mistake again and again in relationship. Like the same thing from my side, not the person's side, from me, making the same mistake. And just, and something dramatic happened at the end, and they left and they walked out. I remember them walked out of the flat and they're like, I'm leaving. And I thought they were joking. And when I went to run and look I was living in San Francisco at the time, I went and I ran and I looked at the window, and there they were driving away. And somehow it so alarmed me that they really left, in this thing. And I had this determination in my suffering of this problem, like, how could they leave me? Like, is it over? Is it, I was really attached to this person, I thought. But I had this determination in my mind, I'm never doing it like that again. I can't. I'm never doing it like that again, as far as intimate relationship. So sometimes you get tired enough, and I never did it like that again. Like I never made that same mistake again. Like, so I found it to be, and you do have what we call a dark night of the soul, right? Sometimes you're down on your knees and you're just, why does this keep happening to me? I know many people that come to our Dharma centers and talk to me or call me or email, and they go, why does this keep happening? Why, so please look at your mind. Because I had to look at my stuff, and I looked at my mistakes, and I looked at how I treated people in relationship, and my goodness, it was very difficult to face up the mistakes I'd made, some terrible mistakes I'd made, to kind of own it and look at it and say, well, you can just blame them and just continue to do this dance that's making you miserable and making others miserable, or it's time to make a change. And I said, enough. So I think that's a really powerful place. And I think all of you have been there where you said, I ain't doing it like that anymore. I can't. That's renunciation. So that's where you have the compassion for yourself, where that's suffering again for me again and again, let alone the other person, let alone whomever I harmed emotionally, right? Whatever, wasn't good enough for me anymore. I can't do that anymore. So I gave it up, and I really had to be very skillful in future relationships to make sure I was doing it in a different way, because those old habits were there. So I actually took a little break from relationships to assess, like, why are you doing this? What do you want out of relationship? Why are you in relationships? What would I like to offer in relationships rather than what did I want to get out of relationships? It was really like that dark night of the soul of in the suffering, and it was very beneficial. And each one got a little better and better and better, like that, until I became a nun. Then it got really good, my relationships, right? So, but seriously, that's renunciation. So ask yourself, with a pattern, it doesn't have to perpetuate, but I do find when we get tired enough, and it's hard to get that tired enough, to get that compassion for yourself, where you decide to give up a certain unhealthy pattern. Now some of you know people that are substance abusers, alcoholics, drug users, people like that. And having done some substance abuse classes, like doing some courses on addiction for people, offering that at centers where I became very familiar with different people. And we're all addicted to something, let's face it. Whether it's a substance or whether it's, we had a woman come to one of our programs addicted to online shopping, nearly ruined her family from her online shopping addiction. People gamble, people have addictions to, talking about themselves all the time, or eating certain foods, or certain behaviors they do. And, we all have addictions to something, right? Something, binge watching videos, whatever your thing is. Okay. So through this process, I remember with substances, with people with substances, they used to talk about in the recovery movement, many of you are familiar with this, I'm sure, is they talk about people bottoming out, like where they've reached a limit, an end, where they're like, I can't drink, I can't do this anymore, ruin my family, I'm sick, I'm back in the rehab again in the hospital with the DTs, and I can't, they told me I'm not going to survive the next one. So they reach a pot, and they always hope that people would reach bottom before they died, because some people unfortunately died before they reached bottom and said enough. So that's really renunciation, when you say enough to an unhealthy pattern and give up the thing that disturbs your mind. Really powerful place. Okay, so when you say, when in the company of others, I shall always consider myself the lowest of all, and from the depth of my heart hold others dear and supreme. This isn't a normal way that most people go around about their interactions. So normally when we meet other people, you have a kind of sense of your identity. A lot of people have a sense of their own importance. Okay. Sometimes people judge and criticize others negatively. Okay. We tend to disregard certain people if we don't have much contact with them. I mentioned before about, who do you see? And this was another class I was teaching. Who do you see that you have in what I would call the light? And who are the people in the shadows in your life? Who don't we see? Okay. So for instance, I noticed when I worked in Washington, D.C. years ago in an office building. So if you worked late, then the cleaning crew comes in to clean the office building, empty the trash. This is like the old days, right? They'd empty the trash, vacuum the floors, a few things like that. And I noticed in the office of who I worked with, of who saw these people and who didn't see these people. Like they felt these people were below them. And you see people dismiss servers at restaurants, how like, oh, get me another bottle of something. They're not nice. They don't see them as a whole person there. Like, you're doing your job and you're, frequenting this restaurant, but they're doing their job. And you can't get your food at the restaurant without those people. You didn't want to work in an office unless they had cleaned it periodically, right? And then I could see people in the office who would get to know these people and get to know their names and find out about them, and it could be the local person at your Starbucks. Like, do you ever find out, like, you see the same person over and over like that? I remember for me somehow, like I like to focus on these people because I think for a long time I didn't. So I just remember years ago when I was working in Vermont at Milarepa Center, I would drive down 8-hour drive to go back to my parents and help them, Philadelphia. So it was an 8-hour drive. And I got used to stopping at this one Starbucks off the New Jersey Turnpike. Somehow that was where I'd stop and want to replenish my drink. And I would go in and instead of getting water, I decided I'd get tea sometimes. And I'd stop in and there was a woman and I used to do this drive a lot, and I got to know her and I knew her name. And then one time, and then she was pregnant, and then she had the baby, and then she showed me pictures of the baby. And so I kind of had this relationship with her, really liked her. And I came in one time and then she gave me a drink, and it was some frothy special thing she wanted to make for me. She just gave it to me for free. And she was like a friend. I mean, I looked forward to seeing her, and I made a point that I was going to stop at that place until she stopped working there. And I remember coming in and I was like, where, and they said, oh no, she doesn't work here anymore. She transferred to something easier for her baby, that, which I was happy, but and I think I asked for a phone number. They didn't have her phone number. I felt like I wanted to be in touch with her. So again, it's kind of really broadens your world when you are open to meeting all these different people. And I see His Holiness the Dalai Lama that engages with everybody like that. There's nobody below him, like that. So if you have pride as one of your issues, why not see yourself lower then? Why not, and I remember there was somebody helping, somebody that, a friend of mine that has a maid that comes in, she helps the maid, like she'll clean with the maid when they're cleaning, they clean together to help. And she said, I've had this woman for 25 years. So she got the woman, they were both around the same age. They were both around 25. So they're both like 50 now. And if you're 50 years old and you're cleaning people's houses, it's really hard work. So she said, well, she's older now, her hip hurts. So they both have hip problems. So they both clean together. And I thought, and they're friends. And then they have lunch together at that my friend makes her maid lunch. And I just thought, why not? I mean, you're both doing a service for each other. Both, the maid needs work. The maid, she's helping the maid. So there's many opportunities like that really help us, I think. There are valid reasons to value and appreciate ourselves, okay? But this is about the exaggerated attitude of pride, this puffed up, inflated feeling some people have, okay? And there are attitudes of self-appreciation, that kind of pride that's encouraged, but I'm not talking about that kind of, we're countering the puffed up pride like that. Okay, so from a worldly point of view, it seems to hold yourself lower than others, okay, could be unhealthy, but we're not talking here, okay, about a depression or inferiority complex, okay? And that would, in a sense, and I'd say called the pride of inferiority. Seriously, pride of inferiority wants to be important and recognized, okay, as much as a puffed up pride that I'm better than everybody else. So people feel like depression and things like this, like low self-esteem, is a little bit more honored in our culture because we feel like, oh yeah, because then you don't think that you're too great, but low self-esteem is a similar device of the ego, holding itself very down and depressed and worthless in relation to others. That's not a balance either. That's not what we're after here. So think about that self. Think about that yourself, if you are constantly getting down on yourself, denigrating yourself, the negative self-critical talk overly isn't what Buddhism's about. It's not a healthy, okay? So a deflated sense of self is also unhealthy. It's often based on an unreasonable desire for acknowledgement from others. You want some proof from others. You want this acknowledgement that you're worthwhile, that you're valuable, okay? But you're never going to feel satisfied when you do hear it from them, okay? Because you yourself feel worthless. So you're never going to believe it. Happens a lot for people, okay? One example I gave is, I gave this example before in other classes, is I was working with a woman who was very bright and capable and talented and great at what she did. She saw herself, though, as a victim, constantly as a victim from some very unfortunate things that had happened to her previously in life, right? And as I got to know her really well, I would see the victim mind surface a lot in a very negative way at other people, blaming other people and trying to find fault with other people and somebody else's, not being an inner being and checking her mind. And I also noticed what was hard was, because I managed her, was trying to give her positive feedback. And at one point she accused me of not giving her any positive feedback, and I thought I had. So then I said, okay, I understand, I'm so sorry. And so then I monitored for the next month really carefully the positive feedback I was giving her, direct positive feedback, not on your way to something else you call across the room like, great job, but directly going to her and showing her like a flyer that she had designed. This is great. I love this. Like you've hit all the marks on it. It's just exactly what we need right now. I love the colors. I love it's so creative. You did a great job. I'd say that over and over, different things. And I would mark when I'm like, I know I gave positive feedback, authentic positive feedback. I wasn't making it up. And she never heard it. She like, I'd have to, with the flyer, I remember she couldn't make eye contact with me. She'd look, she kind of went, well, no, you know. And then I said, no, no, do you hear what I'm saying? And it took me 3 times to say that to her till she looked up, until I made her kind of acknowledge that she heard what I was saying. You know, so what would happen is I would say things like that, the positive, and she would never hear it or believe it. So later she'd come back and say, you didn't give me any positive feedback. And so she again accused me. And then I went back and said, no, don't you remember? And I had like 5 specific things, you know, and then she kind of like the first 2, she's pretended she didn't hear them. And then she said, oh, well, that's right. And I said, no, don't you remember when? So it was kind of helping her. And she said it was helpful when she finally realized she could never hear anything. So be cautious about that. This isn't about the low self-esteem trip. That's just another device of the ego. Okay. So the thought training verse, in the company of others, I shall always consider myself the lowest of all. In this practice, we recognize our potential to attain enlightenment, okay, and accept truthfully where we are in our spiritual journey, okay? I'm not overestimating, I'm not underestimating where I am. I'm just finding myself wholeheartedly where I am, acknowledging that I've got a long way to go, right? I'm giving it my best shot. I'm not a Buddha yet. I make many mistakes. Okay, so when you say consider myself the lowest of all, it comes from all those places of I've got a relative balance to my mind. I realize where I am on the path, right? So whatever I've achieved so far, okay, I still have further to go. So for that, there's no need for the pride because I still have a way to go. I'm still a human being that makes mistakes, okay? And yet I also have some appreciation for myself in this process. I'm doing it, things like that, which helps me appreciate others. Okay. I recognize others' potential in their effort. I see the people in the shadows as much as possible. That all these people, there's the equanimity. Okay. There's the equanimity like that. And the verse is advising us to hold an attitude of humility in all situations with whomever we're with, okay? Because it is when we're with people, okay, there's a danger of pride coming up for some people, especially if that's one of your things. There could be a danger, you know, I did this better. I have a better story. I know more. I know the right thing, okay? So it's not going to happen when we're on our own in our own home. If you live alone, like pride doesn't necessarily happen when you're by yourself, okay? But of course you do see things on the internet and you see other things that poke that, okay? The danger of disparaging others, of thinking of them as lower and puffing up ourself, okay, happens when we're in the company of others. Okay? So it's then that we need to hold this view of thinking of others as more worthy, of them having greater knowledge than ourselves. So this enables us to see ourselves as lower, which counters pride. The other thing is when you have some notion, okay, that they're more worthy, that they have greater knowledge than me, I might have the ability to learn something new. But if I've got all the knowledge, this person isn't as worthy, they don't know as much as me. Whatever they say, I don't really need to listen because I'm not going to learn anything. I've got it all covered. Okay. So if you think about what you can possibly learn from others, anybody, if you have that view, you can learn from anybody. Humility, developing this kind of humility is the antidote to the puffed up feeling of pride. Lama Zopa Rinpoche gives a good example in some of his teachings. It could be, we are jealous of somebody else's higher position at work. We look at that person. We think we would have liked to have had that position ourselves. Okay. We're more worthy of it. This comes up for people a lot at work, okay? Through seeing that person, feeling some resentment about them having that position, okay, we can then be on the lookout for their mistakes. Okay, I see them, they've got the position I want. I'm better qualified. I don't know why they got the position. Well, now I'm going to watch them fall. I'm going to check every little mistake that they make. Okay. We're not looking for what they do well, but we're looking for their mistakes. We're judging them from the sidelines. It's our own jealousy that causes us to look out for their mistakes. Even if they don't make mistakes, there's a danger we might create that they made a mistake. We might exaggerate a small mistake they make. Okay. So that dislike, that jealousy, okay, causes us to slander or lie or create other problems for them. So we see that there's this problem when we don't have a good position. There's a problem when we have a good position, because we get worried that somebody else is doing that to us. There's always people trying to take the person at the top down. Okay. So if you have this sense of humility, if you have a sense of respect for all beings, right, that I have this ability to learn from anybody, okay, because so many other negative minds arise, okay, on the negative mind of pride and attachment. Think of that ride on the negative mind of pride and attachment, how far that's gotten you, right? We get bogged down in this way of behaving. Again, focused only on ourselves. What's in it for me? I want that position. I should have gotten that position. So it's no wonder we keep having a life filled with different problems. So again, it doesn't mean that in the face of this, that you don't explain to your boss, you were going after the position, why you feel more qualified, why you explain, but then the decision's made. But the fact that you did voice it in a very kind, compassionate way, but assertive with your qualities and things like that. Okay, so that they at least know that maybe for next time you won't be passed over, that it will be free. There's nothing wrong with doing it, but with the right motivation, not with hatred toward the boss, not with hatred towards the person that got the job. Maybe you can find a really positive relationship with the person who got the job, which makes your time at that office more pleasant anyway. Maybe you can support them. That creates the cause for people to support you when you get a new position, maybe a position that they want. That's how Buddhism works. That's how karma works. So from a Buddhist point of view, okay, no beginning to the mind. So we've been alive from beginningless time, they say. That's a hard notion for us to understand. Beginningless time. Okay. And think about from beginningless time, look at the problems that we have. How many, like I think in this life, how many times have I gone around to do the same problems again until I get them right? Will I get them right this time? I don't know. Some of them I haven't gotten right. I'm still making mistakes. So if our methods are so successful, if the current methods we're using are so successful, why is the current result? Why are there problems in this life? So is that what we would expect after all we've learned in the previous lives we've had, all those countless lives we've had? We still have jealousy. We still have attachments. We still haven't found deep satisfaction. Okay. We have a great result of a human rebirth that has met a spiritual path. Fantastic. You're here. You got yourself here. Okay. So let's use the here right now. This is the best situation you have. The optimum rebirth is to be a human being that meets the Dharma, to get enlightened. Optimum rebirth for getting enlightened is the one you have right now. This is it. Okay. And in this world system, Shakyamuni Buddha lived 2,600 years ago. That particular Buddha taught the entire path to enlightenment, including Tantra, the quick path. Everything's here for you. Okay. So can you turn up the volume a little bit more to practice a little bit more intently? What's the book, the Dharma book that you keep putting off you want to read? Can you get it off the bookshelf now? Put it on the table with determination. You're going to start reading it this week. Like, think about what you can you do those meditations? Is that going to help you? What meditations do you like to do? Start with those. Even if they don't pertain to this class, start with those. Okay. And again, this particular verse that we're talking about, verse 2, is advising us to watch out when we're with other people. That's really the Buddhist path. I have to watch my mind when I'm with other people. Okay. And when I'm alone, I watch my mind as well. But I really need to watch my activities when I'm with other people. Okay? We have this great, again, this great result of being a human who's met the Dharma. Okay. We have enough good karmic imprints and causes to keep creating this good rebirth again and again. Okay. But you have to invest in it. Have to invest in it. Okay. So really be aware, again, when you're with other people, okay, to see them as higher. Okay. See them as more valuable. See them as more worthy, more knowledgeable. Okay. See oneself as being lower. Can you heed this advice, again, to avoid the danger of pride arising, especially if that's one of your delusions? Pride is one of the 6 root delusions. One of the 6 root delusions. Number 1, ignorance or confusion. Number 2, attachment, desire. Number 3, hatred or anger. Pride, doubt, holding wrong views. Those are the 6 root delusions. So pride's a big one. Pride's a big one. And you might, and you know, I sometimes find the low self-esteem is just that reverse pride. So it's that kind of pride as well. So thinking of oneself as the lowest of all is the antidote in this case, countering pride. Okay. And then when it says from the depths of my heart, okay, we have to discover convincing reasons, okay, why these others are in fact so valuable to us, why they're higher, okay? So you really want to think about others, of find a good quality in them, okay? And what it does is it counters holding that hatred in your heart. I'll give you an example. So if you say Vladimir Putin right now, a lot of us are very challenged by him, okay? And I can sit here and hate him and say I hate him and talk to friends and say I hate him. And we can talk about we hate him and how stupid and invading Ukraine and how horrible and all the destruction and all the horror and all the death. Unbelievable, right? Okay. So it prevents me from seeing any positive qualities in him. And it's hard to see the positive qualities. However, all that hatred and stuff is stored in me. He doesn't even know me. He doesn't know I hate him because he doesn't know me. So I'm the one suffering from that. I'm the one creating another pattern of hatred and anger in my mind every time I create it. So if I choose to realize, and I want to see the good in people, right? Even him, well, I find it fascinating how this little man in Russia has such a hold on the planet right now. He really does. The gas prices, the inflation, you know, invading another country, a democratic country next to him, for what? You know, just because he feels like it, because he wants the Soviet Union back, USSR back, to be, you know. So again, all these, you know, completely self-absorbed views of things. But I find it fascinating that he's able to do this. What incredible power he has. How conniving and skillful to have these advisors around him to protect himself with the loyalty of these people to do what he's been doing to Russia for years. You know, it's got to take some talent and some intelligence of what he's doing. Yeah. But again, I don't need to keep the heart and the hatred and the anger there in my heart. I don't need to keep feeding that. Okay. So slowly, you know, often with children, when you're young and experienced, we get a sense of awe. Okay. That even though they don't know so much about something, they still have a lot to learn. They can have such wise comments or observations. Okay. So you might even gain a valuable insight that you might not have thought of before, you know, about somebody, something like that. There's always, and even your close loved ones, there's always something left to be discovered. We think we know everything about people. So think about that awe that children have. Can we find that about the other people, even difficult leaders in the world? You know, I have some awe for Putin of how he keeps a hold on what he's had a hold on. Find it amazing. Right? I don't agree with it. I don't have to agree with it. But on that level, there's still some value of keeping him kind of there, just to make sure my pride is countered like that. That's something you can think about. And the 8 verses, again, they're essential advice to cut self-cherishing. Okay? And that's the crux of this path to bodhicitta, to attaining bodhicitta, which is one of the wings of the bird we need to fly to enlightenment. You have bodhicitta, your method, the skillful means, and you have your view, emptiness, the wisdom realizing emptiness. Let's look at verse 3. Verse 3 is about checking for and averting delusions when they arise. And wait, I just want to check my other notes here about verse 2, if there's anything more I wanted to say. Okay, this is from His Holiness, from some of the readings. With verse 2, again, the pride. You might say, I'm stronger than him. I'm more beautiful than she is. I'm more intelligent. Okay, I'm much better qualified. We have these thoughts. Okay. Instead, he says, if you remain humble, okay, even when we're helping others, when we're engaged in charity work, right? Not regarding yourself as I'm so good because I'm giving a beggar money. They're weak. Okay, that becomes pride just as much. You engage, rather, he says, you engage in such activities humbly. Just think that I'm offering to this person, I could be in this position any day. I could be in need of this kind of help right now. Why do I think I'm better? Why don't I just help this person because they're a valuable person on the planet? Because by helping them and helping them with the right motivation, I plant seeds in my consciousness that help me get enlightened more quickly. Like that. So things you can think about like that, just training in humility. Verse 3. Vigilant, the moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. Once again, vigilant, it's a key word. The moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. Think about the word vigilant. And this is hard. So this verse, I spent weeks or months with this, just again, please take these verses the next week, the homework. Like, please look at these verses we're going through. Now focus on verses 2 and 3 for the next week. Try to once again do the meditation that we just did on taking a problem in your mind that we just did. Look at renunciation. Ask yourself, this is samsara. What did you think? What did you think was going to happen? Analyze from those points of view. Use the meditation. It's part of your materials. So go through, read through it carefully. Break it down. Take a small section and spend some time on this next week. 3 or 4 times if you can do, would be really helpful for the mind. And maybe put these on your refrigerator, these 2 verses. So vigilant, when we're really working with this, okay, and I really tried to catch, like, you're trying to watch your mind as much as you can. Now, the mind goes pretty quick sometimes. We are busy. But one of the real benefits I found in the pandemic, which I think many of you may have found, is it seemed like time slowed down in some ways. Everything especially that first year, everything shut. There was no traffic for a month. Everything kind of just wound down, and we weren't sure what we were going to do before Zoom popped up. Nobody was really sure, but everything kind of wound down, and some people ended up quarantining alone or with one other person. You're not going into your office, so suddenly you weren't in the stores to see people. All the social events stopped. So everybody was in these little pods, basically. Some people alone. More time to watch the mind. For me, it was like a mini retreat. I was living alone. So it was, and that's on retreat. You don't have all these distractions if you're doing solo retreat. So vigilant. So could I notice and I don't know if you do this, I've been really kind of working on this past month, actually, with like how little bodhicitta I have. So how like 90% of my waking day is spent dealing with myself, what I need, what I want, even if I say I'm working for Land of Medicine Buddha, I'm teaching this course for Chen Ling Center right now, right? And whatever I'm doing, and I go to the staff meeting for Land of Medicine Buddha, but then at the staff meeting, there's certain things that I want. I need to get this out. I need to say this. Now I can say for the benefit of the center and the people here, but I had to really check vigilant. So I go back at night and I kind of think, So I really wanted that thing to happen so that people knew that I was leading the meditation, which is why I wouldn't be able to be there at that particular meeting. So again, it's self-serving, right? I know I'm leading a meditation for Land of Medicine Buddha, but I needed them to know why I wouldn't be there at that particular time in case it was a poor reflection on me, right? So you really break it down to really get vigilant in, can I counter that and just be freer of that mindset of the self-cherishing, because it's so tiring and boring at this point and exhausting for the most part. So vigilant, the most, again, a delusion, when it says the moment a delusion appears in my mind, and I love how it says endangering myself and others. Think about the damage delusions are doing to yourself. Every time you have self-cherishing, okay? Think about the damage over and over, just thinking about myself. Because what it does is over and over, as I mentioned, the faults of self-cherishing, again and again, slow down your spiritual progression to enlightenment. Just natural. So I'm not laying a big trip on you. I'm just saying, I just was waking up to myself and saying, okay, there's a lot of self-cherishing. I'm working on it, but it does, noting it does endanger me. Okay. So a delusion, again, is simply an afflictive mind. Okay. Disturbance in the mind. And I just mentioned those 6 root delusions. So you get an idea of that disturbance. Those 6 root delusions molt. They mix with each other. Okay. So then you get jealousy, which is not a root delusion, but it's a mixture of attachment and ignorance. Right. And then you have a lot of negative mind states, and they're all slightly different. Belligerence, for instance, is different than spite, which is different than cruelty. And those are all negative mind states that you can. I was amazed. I was teaching once in Colorado. The couple that hosted me, a lovely couple, on their refrigerator, they had all the different mind and mental factors, all the different negative mental factors that, every day you'd look at. Well, that was what was going on today, was belligerence for me, or that's where my mind was, or I felt really spiteful today. It was interesting to get to know your mind. Okay. So think about these imbalances in the mind, like attachment. Okay. Attachment, this is the fooling with attachment. It rarely appears as a negative mind. Attachment too rarely appears as a negative mind. Okay. We equate attachment with love. We mix it up. But love is about wanting the other to be happy. Attachment is, I want to be happy. So be careful, because often we think, I had a boyfriend once who said, if you loved me, you would be jealous. You would get jealous. That's how he equated love, was a negative mind state of jealousy, that I should be more possessive of him. Things like that, that I should get upset if he looked, just glanced at another woman like that. And I didn't understand. I was like, why would I want to do that? He wanted to be with somebody else. He should be with somebody else. I didn't want to prevent that somehow. I mean, it depended what kind of arrangement we had. But so attachment again. And with anger, we know it's negative. And they say anger is like the vomit on your clothes. Attachment's the oil stain. It's more subtle, it's harder to get out. It exaggerates the good qualities of a person or a material thing. Okay, and we believe it to be true. And as attachment grows, we plan ways to obtain the thing that we want. Okay, feeling certain that our happiness is dependent on obtaining it. But again, these actions are totally focused on our own desires. Okay, complete disregard for others sometimes. Okay, it's a distorted mind. Okay, afflictions, these mental afflictions, like I mentioned, these 6 root delusions, they don't allow you to see objects clearly. There's a fault there. With awareness of what afflictions are like, okay, in general, and the specific attributes of each delusion, we stand guard, alert, and mindful. That's your vigilance. So again, with this, some awareness of what afflictions are like, what the damage they can cause. Okay, I'm just watching my mind. And now we're able to watch. So before the mouth opens and says something snippy. Okay, so you can think to yourself, what sort of mind am I having right now? You might be in a meeting. and you notice some cloud of discomfort passes over you. Okay, so what's going on with my mind? What just happened? What just happened? What am I thinking about this situation right now or this person? What just passed through my mind? What negative state of mind is present right now? You can ask yourself those questions. How will that negative state of mind distort my present view? Very helpful. Now, I know you can't keep it going all the time, but it's kind of neat. And it's the reason some of us really like to do solo retreat when we can. The longer you could do, the better sometimes, because sometimes you do solo retreat for a weekend and you're just getting a taste. And then you say, I want to do a week. And then you go, what if I had a month? And I know it's hard for people to take off work like that. But those of you, if you're looking into retirement or things like that, or making, like I make the space each year to do that, it's part of, I feel like it's part of my vocation to work on my mind, to do some solo retreat. It's beneficial for everybody that I'm around, for me to take care of my mind. Okay. But I'm also on the spiritual path as a nun, and I feel like it's the least we can do as monastics is try to get some retreat in every year. And I really like to have like 4 to 6 weeks if I can, because I see the benefit to my mind where I can go in a little deeper and look at, so now I want to apply those antidotes more and more through meditation to start changing those afflictions when they arise, a little bit more automatically changing. So does that make sense? Am I communicating? Okay. I just want to check, are there any questions so far?
Well, Amy, we did have one person ask if you can repeat the 6 root delusions, please.
Sure, absolutely. I see I'm a little bit in the shadow here. Time to put the extra light on here. Let me just get this. Okay. 6 root delusions. Ignorance or confusion. Okay, and that's means not having a direct perception of emptiness. Ultimately, is that, okay? Which we've had since beginningless time. Next, you could say attachment or desire. They're similar. Number 3, hatred or anger. And again, attachment and desire is an over embellishment, an over exaggeration of reality. I'm basically highlighting all the good qualities I see in something, but too much so, not seeing the reality that's there. Hatred and anger underestimate the reality that's there and show you a negative picture of it, so you don't want it. You have aversion to it. Number 4 is pride. Number 5 is doubt. And number 6 is holding wrong views, which is related to emptiness. But there's many other 5 different kinds of wrong views that we hold. Any other questions right now? Okay. So I actually find it helpful, this watching the mind. And a lot of people initially are like, what is she talking about? Like, what do you, because we're so distracted with other things. But I found once I got into Buddhism and started meditating and got some instruction and started attending classes and things, you're never bored again, because the mind's the crux of Buddhism. The mind's kind of at the heart of it, transforming your mind, which can be done for every one of us, right? And so I could always watch my mind in a certain situation. You're waiting for a doctor's visit, and you're waiting in the waiting room, and I could just see my mind kind of go out to stuff. And what I mean is, let's say you're waiting in the dentist's office. So now people have phones, so they immediately go to their phone. Sometimes I like to put the phone away and just sit there. And then I'll watch my mind as I look around the room, and I go, oh, and this is mundane, but I'll go, oh, People magazine. Oh, I want that. I want to look at that. Right. And you just see, and I maybe I didn't make a move to get the People magazine, or maybe I got up and went over to, because I rarely see People magazine, but to look at the but you just see, first of all, there's, oh, desire. I want that. I want that. And then you look across the room at somebody sitting across the room. And suddenly maybe you're judging them and you have a negative thought arise about them. And then you go, well, I don't even know this person. What am I saying about this person? Or I might see somebody and I really like their shoes. And then I'm like, I really like their shoes. Huh. I wonder if I could get those shoes somewhere. You see what I mean? The mind just, it doesn't stop. So it's just fascinating. Can I find that the peace of mind where I can just sit still and be at some point, where I just watch the mind going through its things, but without any particular attachment or aversion? That's a more peaceful place for your mind. We can all get there. It takes some training. And that's why I like to do retreat as well. So I just acknowledge what's happening, but it's fascinating. But now we've got these, and we're lost in space in these. It's just, as soon as you pick up, you gotta have the phone. I see people when they lose their phone. We've all been there. We've misplaced the phone, right? So how's that going for you when you misplace your phone? Think about it. Well, David and Lisa are on the move. It's great to see you guys. But think about when you lose your phone. And the hysteria. Now I know there's a lot of information in the phone. I've got all my contacts are in the phone. Some people don't back their phones up. That's a problem. Okay. But just think about, can you just put it away for a moment and watch your mind? Never be bored. It's fascinating, your mind. Okay. So here, vigilant. Okay. It's like standing on guard with a weapon for the enemy who threatens to come into your house. Think about this vigilance you want to have, okay? If the enemy's not coming, you can relax a bit. If he is coming, you get ready to counteract. I want to apply that antidote. Here comes the delusion in my mind. It's a good state to be in. You're ready to recognize and avert an affliction. It's also helpful in recognizing the types of minds that precede the different afflictions. So think about this, okay? That's a key part of it. It's helpful in recognizing the types of mind that precede different afflictions. Anger is always preceded by a mind of discontent or unhappiness, okay? Sadness, okay? For me, anger is sad's bodyguard. You see people sad, but they're not able to admit whatever, so they get angry to cover, okay? Like that. So notice those kind of things. If the discontent is not addressed, you have an appearance of something being wrong and you hold that to be true, then anger arises. When the anger does arise, it's very hard to counteract it at that point. But if the unhappiness is present and you're not angry yet, it's a little easier to counteract, okay? So this is, for me, one of the areas that in working in anger in my own mind, okay, I've caught it now at irritation, frustration, and annoyance. They're all lesser degrees of anger, okay? I watch the little bubbles of irritation arise, right? And I start to notice them first. I'm used to noticing them now pretty quickly before I have full-blown anger, which is harder to deal with. And then what I do is, as those bubbles of irritation are coming up, or annoyance, or somebody walks in and says, oh, this person's always kind of annoying. You see somebody at the center, or this person in your office. And I'll just notice it. And then I'll just notice. And then immediately I have this trigger. Take a deep breath in right now, Amy. Take a deep breath out. I don't say anything to anybody. I'm just a trigger. And then I also have this little humor that I use in the back of my mind, in the face of the bubbles of annoyance, irritation, frustration. There's a little voice in the back of my mind now that gets triggered that says, Amy, do not open your mouth right now, please. Okay. Because in that space, I could say something negative. Okay, so you want to play with it a little bit. Be reasonable with yourself. Be reasonable. Can you catch the delusion, understand what's happening, what's preceding it? Another thing that's practical for me, I know when I am really tired, delusions are going to arise more readily. Delusions are going to be there when I'm more tired, and I'm less vigilant when I'm tired, not able to counteract. So I know when I'm really tired, then I need better for me to remove myself from people if I can, from a meeting. And just to mention to people, I'm really, really tired now. Can we finish the conversation? Can we finish? I really need to go. to really take myself out of that, because the chances are delusion may arrive. Again, endangering myself and others. I might snap at somebody with my speech, might have a lack of, lack of generosity in a thought to them, endangering myself. I don't want to be there. I don't want to do that. I don't want to hurt anybody. Okay. So be skillful to know those limitations of yourself. It's normal. Okay. And same with attachment. If you allow your attachment to spin a story and you don't counteract it, the attachment gets stronger. That's its nature. That's how it works. The more those delusions take root in your mind, you create habits of them in your mind. You create a deep trench of that in your mind. It's harder to get out, but you can still do it, but it's harder. Okay. So this verse advises us not to get caught up in the afflictions. Hugely important lesson. Okay. It's all to do with how we discriminate, how much effort we're willing to put in to make a change in our mind. Lojong, lo, mind, zhong, training. Okay, the mind is able to know all sorts of different objects. We know objects of sight, and we're all come in contact through our sense faculties. So we know objects through visual consciousness, our eyes, okay, through what we hear, sound, and through our ears, through touch, taste, smell. So, and then we know mental objects as well. Hidden mental objects are known through different explanations and reasoning, like space, like emptiness, like nirvana. Okay, we use our mind to put together what we've learned from our senses, what we've learned from past experiences, what we've learned from the experiences of others, and we use reasoning and we use logic. Whatever type of awareness we have, the main mind, this bare awareness, holds the object. And the different mental factors discriminate. They experience, they engage the object. So discrimination, again, one of the aggregates of the mind, like that. Okay, so, you have also, when you think about danger, when it says vigilant, about endangering yourself and others, this particular quote, you can sometimes think of what's dangerous. Somebody can burn your house down. Somebody can steal your possessions, break into your car. People could kill you. I mean, there are these different delusions. Okay, I'm sorry, not delusions, but these dangers that we experience. Okay, the delusions honestly are much more frightening than any external enemy if you examine them thoroughly, according to Tibetan Buddhism. That's what Tibetan Buddhism would say. The delusions are much more frightening. Okay, it doesn't feel like that though. It feels as if the worst things to fear are external. Okay, and even that there is nothing really to fear that's internal. It feels like all the problems we have are out there, outside ourselves. So you want to be very clear that the problems come from your mind. So I'm going to stop there. Those are verses 2 and 3. I'd really like you to focus on this week. Continuing, and let me give you the readings if you want to go on with the readings, because we had first talked about the 8 verses of thought transformation. These are the required readings by His Holiness. And last week I mentioned Mahayana thought transformation by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and when problems come. And then I've got, and again, I'm not sure if my pages are right, Wish Fulfilling Golden Sun, 221 and 223, just these 3 pages, thought training. Are those the accurate pages, Gina, do you think? Because I know you gave different pages. I think it's 221 to 223.
Yeah, let me check. Hold on.
If you want to look at that, that is helpful if you want to continue some of those readings. But there's a lot of great readings from this, and there's books on lojong. The famous one, an easy one is, let's see, where's the one I wrote?
We don't have page 221 and 223 of wish fulfilling.
I know, I couldn't find that in my my ones as well of where that is. I wonder if there's a way, could you find that this week, maybe to see if you can find those additional pages
Sure.
somewhere, maybe FPMT education might know or something. That would be great. Because I realized I was looking at mine and I'm like, it doesn't, whatever verse I have. But there's a famous book, 8 Verses of Training the Mind by Geshe Sonam Rinchen, which is really, really nice book. So I just want to ask in conclusion, any last questions or anything? And then please try to do the meditation on transforming problems into happiness. Break that meditation down. It is a long meditation where you're applying antidotes such as renunciation, seeing someone, especially if it's a person you label as a problem, seeing them as a kind teacher. And we're going to go into that in future verses. Also applying renunciation. And next week, we're going to do the meditation using emptiness for a problem like that. So let's dedicate, please, in conclusion, whatever positive energy we've created from our time together, whatever merit we've created, may it completely help our hearts and minds on this path. May it help us be extremely vigilant with negative mind states that arise for us, and to understand and learn the right antidote to apply, countering that delusion before it's a full-blown mess for us, to help us roll that into our practices, helping us get enlightened quickly, to benefit all living beings. And for all the beings on the planet who need additional healing right now, especially those who are very ill, may they receive it completely. I'd like to really dedicate to Sean Tanaka with our center in New York, Shanti Davis Center, who's had a huge amount of health problems and something quite serious recently. May he have a full, swift recovery as well. And for the war in Ukraine to end immediately, and all the other conflicted places in the world. And do we have any, I can bring up my dedication prayers and share.
I am.
Oh, great. I've got some prayers as well. I can, maybe some basic dedication prayers we can read. Thank you so much, Gina.
Sure.
Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow. May that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. The long life prayers for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And for Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Gina and Venerable Carol, and all those who help Chen Ling Center. And I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, Venerable Amy. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Please be well.
Thank you.